I would like to introduce to you our final speaker for today. And I was going to say a whopper. I don't feel like that's a good phrase. A wonderful speaker we can introduce you now. So this is the Professor Chris Speed, FRSE. So letters after the name, you know that they know what they're talking about. He's the chair of Design Informatics at Edinburgh University, where he collaborates with a wide variety of partners to explore how design provides methods to adapt and create products and services within a networked society. Wow. Chris also directs the Institute of Design Informatics that's home to a combination of researchers working across the fields of interaction design, temporal design, anthropology, oh, that's my old stomping ground, software engineering, and digital architecture. So, Chris, I'm going to pass over to you for your incredible Lego-themed slides. Thank you so much.
No, thank you very much. Oh, God. Whoever finds those bios and repeats those bios, it's always you that regret writing the fucking things. So, right, look, so, yeah, we've been doing stuff in and around this crypto thing. You can't not talk about DAO without crypto. So we're going to have to go there, folks. We're going to go down the blockchain rabbit hole before we get to DAOs because it's fundamental. It's rather like an onion, and you need to go through the layers of the onion to understand what's on the other side. So there is a wonderful thing at the end of the rainbow, or the chain bow, which is DAOs, but you can't get there. So I'm going to try and take you through that, and we'll see how far we get. It is 101, though, so if you've got... Anyone got crypto? Yeah, good. So some of you may well know more because you practice within DAOs more than me. I'm just a bit of a professor dabbling, but we'll see how far we get. The idea is to introduce some blockchain technology, just get that out of the way, and then show you some projects which I think are born after going through the onion. And by showing you how they manifest different characteristics, you'll see why going through the onion makes sense. And then we'll get on to DAOs, which feels late, but I still don't think you can do this unless you go through the onion. Okay, so it's all about power and money. Really, whether you're an anarcho-capitalist or whether you're just dabbling towards something that reconstructs power systems, agency, it's all about questions of power and money. Now, if you think when Satoshi Nakamoto, whoever they are, launched the white paper 2008 and then the crypto in 2009, it was straight after the banks had crashed and many, many people have been placed in dire economic circumstances. Now, whether that had anything to do with his intentions or not, we as a community, like any meme, follow it because it strikes and it appeals to our sense of worry around who has power and where is the money and how are the two entirely interrelated. So when we get to DAOs, we'll revisit this because it's all about who has power within governance systems to deploy and support the projects that we care about. So the second obvious thing is about value or representations of value and their limitations or their affordances and the values that you choose to exploit, use, deploy those representations of values in, okay? So those are what it's all about. And you'll see to a lesser or greater extent people exploiting or abusing or making the most of those opportunities. What we do, this is a bit academic, but we're fascinated in this little question. If I change or you change the representation of value from money, from sterling or the euro, which we're so besotted with. I mean, you are entirely, your lifestyles, the way you think, the way you organize your activities, how you do on the spot cost-benefit analysis. You do it through not just a thinking process, but you do it through your body. And you are so sterling. I can't tell you how fucking sterling you are. It's so, even if you reject it and you're frustrated by it, you're so sterling. If I change the representation of value to something else, whether it's a coin, whether it's a token, whether it's data, suddenly we ask this question, wow, if you unlock that, can you change the values that you can represent? So if I think about it in a crude sense, if I'm a vegetarian or a vegan, and I wanted to change the representation of value in the terms of a coin, what would a vegetarian coin do? Suddenly I associate my values to the representation of value. Suddenly my coin can't be spent in McDonald's. And I'm literally adding strings to representations of value. And those strings are values. So that's something we try to do. Perhaps in the context of DAOs, I'll ask the same question differently. If you change the representation of value from sterling to ether or to Tezos, does it allow you to change the power structures according to those values? And that's where really I think we're trying to get to today. How do you re-engage and take the opportunity of some digital platforms such as blockchain to rewire? So that's why we're doing this. That's why I think I'm interested. I don't know whether you are. But hey, you're stuck. You can't leave now. To blockchain then, let's just briefly talk about how value is traditionally created. Some of you, this is a tricky question. About 3 or 4 years ago, I used to be able to get away with this, but my hunch is there's no one under the age of 18 in the room. So, or under 22, which might be on the risky bit here. So you're all 20th century kids. You might not be. You might be. It's not going to work, this idea. It used to work really well. But as I get older and time goes on, but you're all 20th century kids, so not only are you just sterling through to the bone, that your body is sterling, you also think about consumption in the same way, that at the end of these very sophisticated value chains, which were stood up in the 20th century by Coke or by Lego or by Apple, we have a value proposition. The question is, do you have any stake in that value proposition? No. Those things I've just cited, you don't have much of a stake in. I don't co-create the value of Coke. I don't actually co-create the value of toilet roll from Andrex or Tesco. It's a value proposition developed through a globalized platform through the 20th century, and that value proposition, I'm quite happy with the way toilet rolls turned out. I mean, really, it was come up with, and it's not bad. It's actually relatively sustainable, believe it or not. Now, cars, Volkswagens and Teslas, do we co-create those? Because it's very hard to go back now. Very hard to rip up the roads and co-create new forms of transport. But God knows we need them. Is the Tesla the way forward, or is it just a cheeky product to get us into thinking about energy in different ways? Anyway, at the end of the 20th century, that's how value was produced. It was pushed at you. And you went to supermarkets largely on the basis, do I like that value proposition or that one? There was no conversation. There was marketing and insight, no conversation. When you then get to the digital economy, suddenly software products are co-created. So Instagram, any software product, if it's a smart one, is co-created all of the time because of feedback loops between build, measure, learn, at listening to what you need and what you do, and you know the scale of data that's leaving all your devices now, literally streaming away, because they're trying to figure out which bit of the UX needs tweaking to take out the friction and to make the value proposition according to yours. And you might get huge pivots, or you might just get subtle changes. But nevertheless, we might say, in a digital economy though, we're starting to co-create the value, okay? We're starting, and really the map talks about the idea that any proposition is subject to a whole bunch of data transactions moving around. All right, now that's part of 101, that value is changing because you are connected to it through the way that you interact with the services. I don't ring them up. It's not Internet of Things. Just buy this old shit, sorry. Now, jumping then to why suddenly you move from that network diagram makes a bunch of sense. When you saw this 1950s or 60s, it came out of RAND, the Research and Development Organization in America, when they proposed to the government, American government, that, whoa, you've got a really risky military framework here because it's wholly centralized. And it's the old dialogues, one Russian nuke knocks you out and your comms is down. You need to develop a resilient model by going down the cybernetics network route. And that's what they did. So DARPA and the American, and it grew from the internet as well. We get these very distributed networks. Now, although we weren't born in the 50s and 60s, I'm still so nervous about dates, you have seen this turn and demolish or transform a whole bunch of digital economies. Whether you see it from books to Amazon, whether you see it through music, whether you see it through EMI, Sony, through to Spotify, to Apple Music, whether you see it through banks, and this is the last example, 2008. Does anyone trust a single strike on a bank? Bearings gone. The toxicity within those economies, centralized, huge. So then Satoshi Nakamoto, we lean into his white paper and we begin to play around with a decentralized, distributed model for finance. So we've been on this journey, and actually it speaks to that digital economy. So let's talk about the Bitcoin then, still going down the rabbit hole. Well, at a basic level, you might say it's a digital currency. Scarcity is built in. Now, scarcity is quite important because I could have JPEGs, loads of JPEGs, flipping it, JPEGs everywhere these days, but that doesn't make them scarce. So one of the great breakthroughs of the Satoshi Nakamoto paper, but of course there's lots of histories in blockchaining, is how do you make digital assets scarce? And we'll come into how that's possible in a minute. Centrally, or really important centrally the argument is he's actually offering a ledger which you can have. There's still more corruption in the HSBC ledger than all of the crypto blockchains because you can't get in. It's hidden somewhere, super high cybersecurity, but guarantee there's very, very problematic transactions within the HSB, the Barclays, all of them. But they're centralized, so you can't critique it. It's out of your hands. So you don't know the risks that all of your banks, and remember, you're Sterling kids, none of you are buying coffee with Bitcoin this afternoon. You're all Sterling kids. You can't tell me at how risky your bank, the risk that your bank is exposed to in terms of risk. You can't. You just trust its brand. And you're not involved in any shareholder insight toward the toxicity of that. So they're all unethical. They're all fucked. And you're complicit, all of you. Because you can't get out of it. You're Sterling kids. So, whoops-a-daisy. That's interesting. Why has the decimator appeared? That's weird, isn't it? Why has that done that? Hold on, I've got a... Sorry, now my pointer's gone. Sorry about this. Why is that? Yeah, I don't know why that's turned up. Why is that turned up? Did I press something? Yeah, it's really like, wow. Having just accused you of being complicit with the economic crisis we face.
Sorry.
That's all right.
I'm not a Mac guy.
Kill the system press.
I'm just going to do that.
Okay.
I'm going to go away.
So, diving into blockchain, how does it work? How does it make things scarce? This is a 2014. I might flip this into an NFT, actually, because it's incredibly rare. 8 years after this was taken, I can't find these anymore because there's too many transactions going across the blockchain. So I screen captured this back in 2014 because I was just curious to try and see if it helped me figure out how things work. And it does. I'll do my best. So what we're going to see in a minute is a screen recording from 2014 of transactions across the blockchain. But you might want to understand that its first product as a service was money. So it kind of operates as a clearinghouse in this little video. What you will see, though, are the blocks. So you can see height at the very top. It's 332,699th block. Now, that's because back in 2009, when Satoshi Nakamoto launched the blockchain for Bitcoin, it started at block 0, or block 1. Then 10 minutes later, or thereabouts, this seems to be the rhythm, the cadence. And the cadence is according to a group of people, the miners, you might have heard of them, who are trying to prove that there's the mathematical intaction or the truth to the amount of transactions traveling across the blockchain. So what's happening? Every 10 minutes, a bunch of people are checking the maths according to the nature of transactions and looking for discrepancies. If they don't find discrepancies and they can prove the maths with throwing computing power at it, then they'll seal the block and will say, all those transactions are good. Move along. Give me the next block. Now, interestingly, if you started out mining in 2009, you got 100 Bitcoin for that activity. You were paid for proving the quality of those transactions. So, I mean, again, there's no double spending. Just think about the JPEGs. If I gave you a screenshot of this, or you photographed it and passed it on to them through Instagram, there's no scarcity whatsoever. So you can't have double spending. So the cryptography is trying to prevent any of that duplication. Okay? HSBC, I've no doubt whatsoever. University of Edinburgh, I shouldn't say this. I'm sure it's got clean books. Quick check who I'm being paid for by then. But, so, every 10 minutes, you've got a bunch of miners who are working to be paid off to prove the blocks. Okay? So let's watch. Whoops-a-daisy, I didn't watch at all. And they get, it was 100 Bitcoins back in the day. Come on, Chris. Where's my, it's so hard work. Then it went down to 50. Then it was, as the value of Bitcoin went up, well, it wasn't. It was more to do with the code. The hardness of the cryptography, it was quite easy. You could probably run it on your phone back in the day. Now, as the Bitcoin in the world is wider and broader and it's producing more, actually the payback is far less. So that's really bizarre. I'm holding it in now. Right. So I'm going to play this again. So what we'll do now is watch a little bit in real time what's happening. So the blockchain, so these are all live transactions in real time. So you're seeing a whole bunch of things. They're flipped into dollars because at that point in time, that's the only language we knew about, really. But what you're seeing, these are all live transactions, whole bunch of people. Some transparency, not true transparency. You can't really see who they are. But nevertheless, in the context of the ledger, you have to begin to start trusting the ledger. In a minute, well, you won't see it, but other people are going to prove that all these transactions are authentic using maths. Now, what you can do if you drill down, and I certainly can't do this on any HSB. I've clicked on one Bitcoin transaction. It's even given me a location where the transaction took place. That isn't always possible. Some people hide them. But you then begin to follow the Bitcoin. And you begin to literally see where your pound coin went. So we've got a whole bunch of characteristics now. You've got the idea that you're producing these blocks, which are really important. You can download the Bitcoin ledger, by the way. So if you want to go and download it, it's probably a few hundred gig now, but you can download it. It does sustain some metadata connected to your coin. I mean, really, what metadata is connected to your sterling that you love? The Queen? I mean, get off it, guys. It's really toxic shit. So you can follow it a little bit. You can then follow the transactions and begin to see which ones, well, interesting. You get to see a whole bunch of metadata all the way down. So in summary, a blockchain what? Well, it's a ledger. Like all banks need a ledger. But this one's shared. It's entirely digital. It is sealed, though. So once these blocks go in, perhaps I didn't make that clear, they call it immutable. So once a block is sealed, it's been proven intact. You can't go in. You just can't go back. Because by going back, you might change the maths, what would then dismantle the integrity of it. So it's kind of a self-fulfilling block that then becomes sealed. When we run the workshops using Lego, we seal them for people. And then what we also do is take a photograph. This is our little block we used to run workshops with. And we let everybody see it. So you have a sense of transparency. It's highly distributed. You can get the ledger. If you've got space on your hard drive, you can go and get it. You could then start running some mining performances on it if you want. A very powerful computer. But of course, it's encrypted. Now, the blocks themselves, moving across in time, they're incremental storage of transactions to form an immutable change, an unchangeable chain. Okay? Mining is this incentive, really. The Satoshi Nakamoto needed an incentive to drive computing power to prove the blocks. And it's just an incentive. You do the work, making sure all of these people's transactions are true, and I'll give you a kickback. Actually, some miners don't care about DAOs. They're not interested in anything to do with NFTs, any work. They just want to mine because they've got compute power that can prove the integrity of the network, of the ledger. Okay? Cool. Good. We're down some way through the onion. It's good. What does it give you then? Well, it's interesting because once you develop this kind of thing that's in your heads now, it's a possibility for people to exchange value without the need for a trusted third party. Don't need to go through a clearinghouse. Can move money directly to you. I might need to pay some gas. Gas is this phrase we use to boost it through. So if I went into Starbucks now and used a Bitcoin, you can't, but I'd have to wait 10 minutes potentially for the block to be proven and sealed. Yeah, because I'm waiting for those blocks to be cryptographically proven and then sealed. People don't want to wait 10 minutes. So you can pay extra gas to guarantee, and I don't quite know how that works, but you can pay more to accelerate. So you end up spending a bit more money than you planned. And arguably, there's a question, are those people who offer to do that for you, who insure it essentially, are they a middle person? And some people think they probably are. But in theory, I can give you some Bitcoin now, and it's not going through a third party. Building trust via distributed consensus. So in some ways, people talk about there was no trust in banking. By this, it's you just trust the maths. I don't know what you do with it, whether it's child exploitation. I mean, there's some shit going down on that Bitcoin blockchain. We'll never know what it is. But in some ways, at least I trust the banking technology, okay? Anyone in theory can join the system. That's a bit generous, isn't it? Because actually, you do still need to be equipped with some of this technology. But it's security through distributed copies. If one of these goes down, it's out there all the time in its very nature, okay? What's it good for? Well, it's been good for currency. I think that was product number one, because it's just a distributed database, really. It's a secure distributed database. So what's a distributed database good for? Well, it turns out product number one was money in a secure distributed manner. Then again, you've got a whole bunch of financial possibilities where you could begin to start thinking about, well, if I could put a record into a blockchain and it's immutable, no one can change it, then you could do more things with it. Land registry. I mean, who do you think owns if you don't have a mortgage, who owns the land registry for the place you live in? Don't tell me it's in an analog. I mean, Jesus, there's records in the bottom of this building which are paper. I mean, how can you start fiddling with this stuff? Do you trust the DVLA for your vehicle registration? You might. I mean, forgive me, some of you, if you're British, might do, because you've got a pretty good cyber-secure organization. There's plenty of countries in the world that don't have stable governments and don't have trustworthy governments. So where do you put your license plates? Or do you find that actually someone's got your license plate and you have no power? So it's true. Selling Bitcoin and blockchain thinking in the UK is hard because you all live in quite a civilized, protected state. You go to many other parts of the world, huge amounts of instability and corruption. So there's lots of other cultures that see this as a way forward. Private uses, contract, wills, signatures. You can imagine things that are contested, potentially could be corrupted and changed, are worth making immutable and putting into time into a ledger. University of Edinburgh, I mean, I think we're pretty good, Ruth Liam, at securing our promises if you do the work and the grades. But how many lecturers get paid off? I don't know. How many students use those bots to write the essays for them? It's a bit of a game going on both sides. Should we put them into a blockchain, and then you can always get to that, and you can prove your identity, and it goes into your shared CV, which is probably another blockchain service, and I know you got the degree that you said you did. How do you build that trust? Oops, it's done it again. Your decimator is decimating my slides. How does it do this?
It's had a lot of labors.
Has it really? It's decimated itself, has it? How am I doing for time? Right, I better speed up now. Weird, isn't it? Cheers. So, so it could do lots of things. And what it doesn't say in there is DAOs, but we'll get onto those things. What other people have done things with it? I won't dwell on these. Because you have a ledger, some people are interested in its traceability. So blood diamonds, if you could put a diamond onto the blockchain at source that came from an ethical mine, Everledger suggests that it's a way of encrypting it. So because every diamond that comes out of the ground has a geomorphological signature, you can literally scan it, dump it in the blockchain. Even then when it's gone through cutting, you can still associate it and say this crystal is about to get cut. You keep that signature and it goes into the immutable blockchain, and you can prove without a shadow of a doubt, geomorphologically, that that diamond didn't come from a blood mine. That's one example. Whoops. Another example is what happens when you start writing code, because if you can have a platform of these activities, you can write code on top, which gives you smart contracts. This is quite a nice idea. I don't think they ever launched, actually, but City Bikes, the open source City Bikes in Amsterdam, literally gave a bike a blockchain, a Bitcoin wallet. And actually, if you give the bike a Bitcoin wallet, it has power to spend. So I go along in Amsterdam and I hire a bike, this particular bike, and I pay, I don't know, €5 for the afternoon. Because the bike is the business, it's not owned by humans, it has the power to spend. It's got its own spending power. If I get a puncture, it phones all the local, or it contacts all the local bicycle repair shops, and it pays off the repair person who fixes my puncture. Anything it does with the profit, it orders a new bike with a new wallet for itself. So within 3 years, it owns the market of hiring bikes because no money is going to a profit organization. So suddenly you start seeing that's only possible because of the smart contracts. Give this lectern the power to have a wallet. How much would it pay for this service? How important is this in the world for Codebase? How do you build economies that start moving money around in different forms? If you change the representation of value, you allow different values to be represented. So I'm going to show you 3 examples that we do, which I think went through the onion. These are cash cups. So we took, this is not, well, you'll see it's not blockchain, but it's blockchain thinking. We took 100 cups to the Netherlands. Each cup has got an RFID tag. You put it on the dish, the thingamy, oh, fucking hell. You put it on there, it doesn't fucking work. Right, let's try again. It'll be all right, it's fine. There's no ports on that side. I think it's just gravity. I keep trying, don't we? Yeah, so I took 100 cups to Amsterdam. If you put it on the saucer, it knows it's on a small internet, and it says, no, you can't have a coffee, because I can see you've not got any credit. However, if someone else puts their coffee cup on the same saucer, both get credited, because the smart contract says that I want a coffee, and Ruth wants a coffee, so I'll credit you both. So therefore, what we do then is changing, and there's your bank account, each coffee cup, unique identity. If you have credit then, you can take it over, it's got green, go over to the till, and it pays out, and it goes red. And you want another one? You've got to go and find another friend. So the value, what is the representation of value? It's no longer a currency, but the coffee cups are operating rather like smart contracts, moving value around to generate social capital, caffeine capital. If you go to the barista's great, but he takes ages. But he gives you extra capital. The queue that's a 10-minute queue. Through the room there's completely free coffee. You don't have to talk to anyone to get it. You don't have to frickin' wait for a barista to give you a nice swirly pattern. So we are curious because we think what these things are doing is adding value, making the representation of value from an economic transactional one into social. Those are Katie West cups. Katie West did the ceramics for the Commonwealth. So they're quite rare. 2 people stole them, fuckers. But they knew they were rare cups. Again, what's the representation of value? Is it social engagement? What are you trying? What's the job to be done in going to a conference? Meeting new people? How does a coffee cup become a representation of value? You have the little online bank account, and you have a very pushy barista, but he seems to add value. I don't know how that's possible. Anyway, so again, rather like there's no blockchain here, we have a centralized database. And all we're doing is having smart contracts allowing me to build value. So the question, where is the currency? Well, the cup is a coin. We've just flipped it, and it's doing certain things, okay? Another time and this is when we really got down the blockchain thing, this is Bitcoin marriages. We also said, wouldn't it be fun to provoke people to get married? Putting yourself on the ledger, the Bitcoin blockchain, forever, for 5-minute marriages. And it's really peculiar. We did it at the festival, I've done it in London, and it freaks boyfriends and girlfriends and girlfriends and girlfriends and boyfriends, and it freaks them out. Because you look at each other and say, will you? And the other one says, what the fuck? I don't want to do that now. But it's only for 5 minutes. And it's the really, you see such couples walk off. We're going to talk about this. So all we do is have two phones, both have got Bitcoin wallets, and therefore on the blockchain. They're in the same geofence. They're in the same location. So if I initiate a contract on one, and someone initiates a contract on the other one, it then prints a receipt, which is a marriage receipt. And I only got 5 minutes, so you get in and you get out. But you'd be amazed how many people hit the divorce button just because they didn't want to. I mean, we don't know who you are. You can invent any names you want, but it's astonishing how it seems to upset couples, as though you're not only sterling kids, 20th century kids, you're also marriage kids with some really weird boundaries. So this is Jane and Pierre, got entirely different partners, slightly concerned that they're indelibly, immutably recorded on a blockchain, married. The fuck, is the church going to find me? No one's going to find you. It's hashed out. You can't find it. We even married this guy. He's got 3 daughters. We married the youngest daughter to the father. Oh, it upsets people. Show it in Bitcoin conferences. People hate this slide. But we can do what we want, folks. We can ask questions about how we represent values and what might be acceptable, because it's just a game. But wow, it really upsets people. So in this one, this is on the blockchain. So a few more diagrams here. You can see the blocks. What happens is, at this moment, 2 people have got Bitcoin wallets, and we simply allow a certificate to be recorded on the blockchain with their pseudo identities, and the blockchain moves on. But it's stuck. I can't get them out. That's the deal. You're just in that economy. So the last example when I get to DAOs is NFTs. We're running an NFT show at the moment, and I just wanted to show you how this works. It's running up till Sunday, so if you want a free NFT, you can get one from Sasha and Gingy. This is our in-space gallery, and you can pick up their work. You can hold up a color to the camera, and it produces you and releases you a unique NFT. Critically, I just want to show you again what's happening because you build things on a blockchain. In this instance, this is the artist, and the artist has been making digital art for years, JPEGs. People have just been taking it. They've just been taking it, quite rudely, no accreditation. They go to Google, get the images, and her artwork is just taken. So she was keen to say, no, I wouldn't mind some one attribution, rather like the blood diamonds. I want them to know it came from me. If they're not going to pay for it, at least they know. So she puts an image on what they call the permaweb, this interplanetary file storage system. It's like, wow. But that's a distributed database. So if something goes down, it's not on her hard disk, but she puts a certificate on the blockchain and says, I'm minting that, and that's mine. And that goes back to her. Then this guy wants to come along and buy, and they sell it. They find the price between them. He has access to the files. He can never remove it from the internet. That's there permanently. But he has a certificate that associates it with her, the artwork, and him on this case. And it's immutable. So people are just building things on this immutable database. Right. Moving swiftly along. DAOs then, well, that's just another design on top of that platform. In this instance, this is old PwC, and they were doing work speculating. So if you can get your head around having a digital coin, actually you're already on the way to DAOs, which is somewhere here. Basic smart contracts, rather like the bike. If the bike has a flat tire, but has a basic smart contract, the bike will call the nearest bicycle repair shop, and it will pay. And you'll have to wait. They might give you a coffee. There you go, there's the bike back. And no money changed your hands, but the bike had a smart contract. It gets a bit trickier because you can do automatic ones with multi-party. So I don't like this one, it's a bit dark. But a seller lends, is that the one? No, I'm thinking of this one. Sorry, I'm still at that one. In this instance, it's dark. A landlord, you have an Amazon lock with a Bitcoin wallet. If you don't pay your rent, it just locks. Dark, so dark. PwC, what do you expect? All the way along, though, they began speculating. They speculated on autonomous business units, which I think are rather like a car. If the bicycle can replicate itself because it earns enough profit, then to some extent it's an autonomous business unit. Who owns the business? Who's paying the taxes? the bikes are. Suddenly humans get cut out of the chain. And then we're on to distributed autonomous organizations. So I'll stay there, but they speculate it could go all the way up. If there's an unstable government, at what point does the DAO flip to saying, we're just going to run the country ourselves, thanks very much? Quite, well, viable, potentially, if you have an immutable backbone. And we're going to look at that one. So it's all about power and money, because it's all about your ability to decide at what point you're upset or unhappy about whether your value and values are being misrepresented. A DAO, they're very, very simple, really, based on if you've grasped the underlying technology. It's a software-enabled organization, so it has to rely on all of that software being built on the blockchain. It allows us to organize ourselves. And I'll just add an example. Imagine we wanted a shared bank account this afternoon. Can you imagine how much work that would be to do the risk assessment on each of us, administering potentially thousands of employees, let alone the cybersecurity involved in protecting it? I don't trust you particularly. You look nice. I don't trust you. We have to pay the lawyers to develop some terms, some contracts, and every time we want to do something as a collective bank, wow, there's some serious hard labor lifting. So just have a software-enabled organization. That's all it is. It's just software. DAOs may make, I like this provocation, I'll leave with this one in a minute, but DAOs may make collective decision-making easier because to some extent, they're just letting the software do all the work. I'm not sure this is true, but I think there are 3 DAOs generally in typologies. First DAO might be the protocol DAOs that are already working. So the teams that are developing Ethereum, the blockchains, they're actually performing decision-making, self-governing systems at quite a deep level. So to allow the blockchain to evolve appropriately, they've had to set up their own governance systems. In other words, if it's open source software, what governance do you need? So we'll call them protocol DAOs, and I won't go deep on that. Investment DAOs, we'll spend some time on that, and we'll look at social DAOs. So investment DAOs, again, back to my drawings, and this is one model. I've only just been sketching these, so you might say I'm wrong. But we've got the blockchain again. These people want to be part of the code-based DAO. Now, in this one, it's an investment DAO. So they're literally prepared to say, hey, Codebase know, Ollie and team know what the best companies to start investing in because they want to do social environmental companies, startups. So a whole bunch of people will buy tokens. And that money then will get flipped into a shared wallet. So you've got a fund. You don't need venture. You've just got a fund. And depending on how many tokens you bought, you may well have more buying power. And that might redeem later. That's in another block. It's all secure, so you can't really hack this. They're all blocked in. There's a smart contract that wraps around the wallet. It links to a proposal that arrives maybe from a team who want a startup fund on this block. So they know who it is. Therefore, they'll know how to pay the money out. They know who the membership is. This is a smart contract. It knows the wallet. So if I bust in and try and vote, I can't because I'm just not in that network. These people then can make a vote. The smart contract can say it's 51% agreement. It could say 95%. The smart contract might say, if you don't know, you can delegate to an expert because maybe we don't know, and maybe Stephen and Ollie do know. So nevertheless, that will be wrapped into a smart contract. If someone votes and appropriately they win, the smart contract will simply release the funds for that proposal. So that's running. Examples, having to speed up now, is Flamingo, which is supporting art across NFTs. So NFT artists are doing lots of small things, but how do they have any support structure? Where's their union, almost? Where's their galleries, their network? So Flamingo sorts that. It's a NFT-focused DAO that aims to support emerging investment opportunities for ownable blockchain-based assets. NFTs are not just cat pictures encompassing digital art collections, in-game assets. So it's almost like a business supporting business, and what we might call the creator economy. I'll let you dive into these. Just search for Flamingo DAO. The other one is more closer to the example I've just given, BitDAO, which they really want to help supporting direct partnerships or swaps, expansion by specialized autonomous entities, farming, artist guilds. They're very, very big. Fractal expansion. So they're going to invest. You get a kickback if some of those winning startups are doing very, very well. So it's an investment fund, but it's deeply secure based on trusted communities. And I quite like their example. You've got this voting governance framework, and it enables wild ideas. If you really want batshit crazy ideas, maybe the batshit crazy community will vote for you. And it's very much like a tribe who votes for itself. On to social DAOs, which are perhaps more appropriate for today. If Codebase actually said, we don't need your money, we have money, but what we want to do is listen to you. So we've got this in the university. I'm thinking that my team, we've got about 70 students a year, and they pay a lot of fees at Edinburgh. Why don't I give them a token each? But what it does, it gives them voting rights about what we do. Shall we go to Paris for the field trip, or shall we buy this type of technology? So not dissimilar to the last diagram. My students arrive, or Ollie's, you arrive today. He's just going to give you tokens. You'll still need a wallet, but he's going to give you tokens. He needs to know your identity to some extent. But in this instance, you've just got voting rights. And if a proposal comes in from Codebase, hey, community, do you think we need to improve the coffee? Or should we go and get ethical coffee beans? Because we're just using cheap and nasty Asda coffee beans at the moment. Actually, he'll just put it out to a vote. And the smart contract, as long as it's embedded in there, will just support the proposal or not. So to some extent, you don't have to have any crypto, but you could have membership within that space. Examples, Friends with Benefits is the classic one, which seems to be using money and they do use their own coin, but to support events. So if you had to think about starting up a Codebase again, well, how would you get thousands of people together to start saying, well, I want an Edinburgh event. Okay, what's your plan? Put your proposal in, and the community will say, yeah, sounds like Edinburgh needs an event. So based on the events, what the community need, they decide almost the swelling and the growing of this community. And if you dive in, you'll see a whole bunch of activities, events. How do you build a culture? How do you build a movement? Well, they're trying to do it through this. Seed Club is community DAOs, and you're backing projects there towards sustainable housing. So they're the projects they've backed, rather like an investment, but they're trying to lead on the social. So they'll go and get other forms of money, but ask you to vote on what that money should be spent on. And they also have the money to run an accelerator, but they want you to know, how do you win out of an environmentally orientated accelerator? Finally, I think there's this one, which is Crass House, and they just want to buy an NBA team. So there's batshit crazy people out there like us who just want to see culture challenged around power and money. How do you build value, and how do you build value according to certain values? And decentralized DAO governed by a community of fans, of baseball lovers and purists. Together we will write the consensus rule that will bring the first fan-based government team to the NBA. And we recognize all these issues, whether it's on that Premier League and that Super League. I mean, the fans just stood up and essentially developed a public voice around a DAO and said, no fucking way. And it collapsed in the UK. So you begin to see, well, how would you instrument that if that kept coming? How would you resource it if it kept coming? How would you find the legal fees if they just kept coming? Because we've lost some battles, right? So to finish then, it's a software-enabled organization. Think about that. Think about that underlying structure I've tried to draw for you. Think about the implications of when we might want to do things together, increasingly in the face of challenging power and money. And DAOs may be better at collective decision-making easier. And I do think, let's be honest, we have some huge issues addressing the collective. That's not over the next millennium, so the next 10 years. How do we move? How do you move your pensions? Your pensions are probably oil and gas, folks. Your pensions are probably carbon. Get the fuck them out. And start getting everyone out. The only way you're going to do that probably is not by knocking on the door of the banks. Probably by beginning to think about collective action. How was that? Have I ran over? 5 minutes. Not too bad. I didn't ask any questions.
Don't worry, it was the decimator's tax.
I know.
So thank you for,
Yeah, we're
for
blaming the
grappling with that. We
decimator.
can only blame the bloody decimator. Everyone, Professor Chris Speed, thank you so much. We've got so many questions, but I don't think we'll have time to go through all of them. I'll maybe just quickly ask the top two, if that's okay. Sure. And sorry to everyone who had a question that doesn't get asked. I'm sure you can grab the professor himself. Could you explain DAOs in a way that my 6-year-old child, I actually don't have a 6-year-old child, so I feel like a liar. I will have a cat soon. So in a way that my cat could understand, please, in maybe only 2 sentences, if possible.
Friends, it's a group of friends who share the same values or interests, who want to work together and want to, I'm trying to try to simplify it, use software to take the pain out of governing, because governing can be really stressful.
I can imagine. Yeah, it's bad enough with the decimator, so yeah.
Yeah. Is that?
No, that's wonderful. And one just last week question here. Can DAOs be regulated for fields like fintech, health tech, etc.? Who in a DAO is the responsible party?
Yeah, so maybe I was very pro about DAOs. There's an equal amount of critique and worry about them. Where is governance? Because in the end, you'll ask questions. I used Codebase and Ollie as an example. At what point did they encode Ollie to have the power? What's the kickback to Codebase? Is it a Ponzi scheme? Hey, come and invest, and we'll slice 20% off. So those questions are really big. It really is an MVP space at the moment. People are literally standing up DAOs, and we're spotting the bad ones and learning to spot the good ones. But there's a lot of burning of fingers, and there's a lot of good things going on. Friends with Benefit looks as though it's standing up, but is it gendered? They have lots of representation of multiple communities, but can't quite tell because the crypto space is very masculine and very crypto bro. So no, I mean, there's no regulation whatsoever. I think we're going to find regulation comes if these become viable. So for an example, energy is challenging at the moment. Now, if you managed, I can't afford solar panels and I'm quite a good salary, but if we collectively wanted to put solar panels on Codebase's roof and we wanted to share the kickback from that solar energy somehow or other, which might be in our interest, folks, because we might be able to afford a bank of panels between 25 of us, then that could work. But then someone's going to have to help regulate that because we're going to have to hook ourselves up to the national grid to push money back, push energy back, or we're going to have to put batteries in to walk off with the energy. So there's a moment when the rubber hits the road and a whole bunch of regulatory issues will either say, whoa, stop, or if we want to integrate and money needs to change hands, we want to buy Codebase collectively. Wow, you've got to hit some challenging regulatory errors. So
Least of all, paying me off for sure, you know.
But we are learning together. Communities developing illiteracy. It's found some huge flaws, some loopholes, and some wicked people. But we're learning together. It's quite an interesting journey. It's very young.
Thank you so much. Again, everyone, if I could invite you to give a big hand to Professor Chris Speed. Thank you for your time.